What's up, everybody? This is Toru, and in a way, so are you. Today, to start the new year, going to drop into a little episode of ProducerHead Bars, sharing one of the ideas again from the Invisible Instruments. I think it's a good idea to kind of embrace this as we all start the new year and think about new habits we want to implement and the way that we want to be in the studio. Before we get into this, I do just want to share real quick, we're going to be doing at least 2 new things this year. One of them is featuring music from people in the community. So if you would like to submit your music to be featured in the community-wide emails and communications, please hit the link in the bio and submit your music. I do ask that they are released projects so that we can feature music that is out there and send people to what you're making. The second piece will be feedback. So if you have projects you're working on, tracks you're working on, and you'd like me to listen to them and get my opinion or ideas, you can also hit the link in the show notes and submit your project, and I will listen to it, record me going through it in Ableton, etc., and we can share that with the community also. So without further ado, this idea today is nothing to something, how to beat the blank screen problem. So I think really at the core of a lot of what I've learned on this show and through talking to producers outside of the show is really a lot of the most successful producers that we know, and the producers that, regardless of how you define success, that are having the most fun are those that are making the most ideas. And in order to make ideas, you have to get over that blank screen. You have to open up and start from nothing. It's arguably the hardest part of making music. So if you want to make your best ideas, you have to overcome the blank page. So this first part, stop creating and start discovering. I think one of the big things is to kind of remove the pressure of this sense of that you actually have to make something out of nothing, and instead to treat creation as a natural consequence of discovery. So instead of trying to create an idea, to try to discover an idea. And it's a subtle but really distinct way, I think, in which you can approach the way that you make new ideas. So starting from zero requires a distinct mindset when compared to other parts of the creative process, because it involves the discovery of a beginning. Remove the pressure to create the idea. Instead, establish the circumstances conducive to the self-collaborative discovery of accidents. It's a convenient place to borrow from improv comedy or playing with a child. You are in a mode of yes and with yourself. You wouldn't discourage a child from pretending that his fire truck can fly. So what do you gain when you stop yourself from moving forward with even the most fragmented form of an idea based on arbitrarily discouraging standards? The adoption of an attitude rooted in discovery versus creation is subtle and transformative in how you can approach a session. Discovery embodies curiosity, exploration, and an observational awareness of your surroundings, which can lead to happy accidents and the arrival of ideas. This removes the burden of imposing your will upon nothing in order to make something. In discovery mode, you don't necessarily know what you're looking for. However, you trust yourself to know it when you see it. You are in search of the kindling that will spark a creative fire. That kindling may show up as one chord, one note, or even a car driving by that allows you to hear the beginnings of a song. That is enough. You are looking for the minimum amount of activation energy to propel you to the next step. You are not trying to write the final part, but the next part. While in the process of beginning a song, it can be helpful to forget about the idea of a finished song. Thinking of a finished song inherently brings about comparison at a time when your goal is to maintain forward motion and make something new. So I believe you can sonically stimulate motion, and that is to be like, if you really don't hear anything in your head, we're fortunate to live in this time where we have sample libraries and all kinds of things. So the tangible evidence of discovery mode is documentation, or the recording of what you hear, or taking action en route to its documentation, which would this case is recording. It's almost like stream of consciousness writing, but instead of writing on a page, you are dragging and dropping or recording to your DAW. A helpful question to ask yourself, what is it that you hear? If the answer is nothing, introduce sonic stimulus. That could be a sample, that could be a drum break, it could be a random chord, anything. You're essentially giving yourself an auditory Rorschach test. Within the document, and again, if you're subscribed to the podcast, you'll get this full write-up, or you already have this full write-up, and you can look at the whole list of ideas that you can use to kind of help generate motion if you really feel like you're stuck or at a standstill. So if you're not already subscribed, subscribe to the podcast, and you'll receive this full write-up along with several others, as well as a free sample pack that I made royalty-free for all of you. If you don't know what to do, do something, and do not linger for too long in one place. For instance, you can play with a 5-minute limit per sonic stimulus. So that's to say, let's say you drag in a sample and you play with it and you can't find anything. Instead of just forcing yourself to find a way with that sample, after a few minutes, just know that you're going to move on to something else. Because again, the idea is to kind of just keep yourself moving. And if you keep moving, the likelihood that you're going to find something increases dramatically. So equally as important as getting started is knowing when to walk away. So again, time limits are really helpful. In this phase, you are not trying to finish an idea. You are discovering the beginning of a new one. That said, structure is helpful to frame your effort. Before you sit down, establish some boundaries. So here's a really concrete and descriptive example about how you could approach or implement this, right? So when you sit down, only spend 30 minutes max on trying to discover an idea. If you don't need the full 30 minutes, don't force yourself to use it. And the goal is, again, to make a 4-bar loop containing at least 2 of the following elements: drums and percussion, bass, harmony, which could be chords or a sample, melody, lyrics. After 30 minutes, you'll stop no matter where you are, even if you didn't get the 2 things down. Duplicate this 4-bar loop out to a couple minutes, bounce it to your producer idea pool for later listening, save and close the project. The producer idea pool is another concept that we talk about in another one of these invisible instruments. Again, if you're subscribed, you will have that write-up available to you. So the big idea behind this, and the reason that this is worthwhile, is that something is better than nothing. The early stages of your creative process are about generating forward motion without self-imposed impossibility. What you are trying to do is arguably the most challenging part of the creative process, to go from nothing to something. What do you gain by creating additional obstacles to an inherently intimidating part of the process? Mentally, set your minimum requirements for any idea as low as possible. Even the worst idea is better than no idea. Something, no matter how seemingly small, can become anything. Nothing will remain nothing. Physically, keep yourself in search of the creative kindling that will spark the next step. When in need of a push, expose yourself to sonic stimulus in service of hearing possible paths forward. Also, abide by the 30-minute session, comprised of shorter time limits to work with the different sounds and instruments to keep yourself moving and active in the process. So as we do in these parts, I want to address what I feel like are really common and sensible kind of counter arguments to the idea that I've spent all of this time describing to now. And I think in the case of this idea of kind of showing up in a seemingly mechanical way when it comes to creativity is the idea, well, creative lightning has to strike, and that's where ideas come from. And I think this is an especially enticing argument if you've had that experience. If you've sat down and suddenly you had an idea, or in a really short period of time, you made one of your favorite ideas, you're like, well, that's how good music is made. So why would I regularly sit down in this kind of mechanical way and make seemingly bad ideas? Well, yes, those things can happen. And if you keep doing this, it will happen. Also, is getting struck by lightning a strategy to sustainably make music and to improve your abilities, skills as a producer? That's where I think it's not a great strategy, and where something like this is sort of useful in almost treating your studio time like exercise or the gym, where you just show up to get time and reps in. So if you want to find out what you're capable of, commit to making new ideas often. This strategy of discovery with an emphasis on motion increases the overall quantity of ideas that you make, which begets a quality of ideas. In fact, the more that you embrace this approach, the more likely you are to find yourself struck by creative lightning. The other argument I'd like to address, or the other kind of opposing viewpoint, is this idea of beat block. I know it's kind of a controversial idea, and we've talked about it a bunch on episodes in the show, and I do believe it exists, but I believe it's misunderstood, as beat block is often spoken about as a state of not having ideas, and I think it's actually more like you have ideas, but you immediately shoot them down before they have the opportunity to become something. So the foundation of this entire strategy to go from nothing to something is really about creating an environment for low stakes discovery and acceptance, because the first version of the idea is not the final version. And because we know something, no matter how bad or small, can become anything, and nothing remains nothing, we are better served to just show up and try. A good complementary idea to this from a previous producer, Bars, is the idea around frequency, which is also another write-up included with all of these other invisible instruments. So I encourage you to check that out. So again, thank you for listening. This has been Producer Head Bars. If you're not already subscribed to the podcast, I invite you to subscribe. Again, you will receive all of these full write-ups along with a free sample pack to help you get going from nothing to something, all royalty free and created by me for the community. Again, as I said at the top of the show, we are now accepting submissions for music to be featured. So you can hit the link in the show notes, submit your release projects. We will be sending those out and sharing them in upcoming emails to the community. Also, if you have work in progress, Ableton projects or the balance of the track, whichever you'd like to do, you can send those. I'll listen to them, record, and give feedback and ideas. Share that with the community also. So that concludes another Producer Head Bars. This has been Toru, and in a way, so are you. We will catch you in the next episode of Producer Head. Peace.